We're live.
All right. And we're live. Thanks for joining us for week 9 of the Make Guitar podcast. Well, today we're going to talk about pedals and form factors and options and more. How's that sound? Particularly choices that you can make as you're building, or even while you're laying out your pedals, or whatever. You have choices. As a pedal maker, you have all kinds of choices.
Yeah. Man, too many choices sometimes.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but I mean, you start with the first choice is, what pedal are you going to make?
Oh, yeah. So what are you working on this week, Kirk?
Well, I'm working on putting together the set neck Telecaster for my brother. It's basically a snap together model. There's there are a couple things where I have to actually measure and drill, and they're destructive processes, but for the most part, it's like it's your snap together versus your more high end like professional type models. Remember those car models or battleships or whatever that you'd build when you were a kid? There'd always be like this cheap snap together projects that you could get. They were usually cheaper for little kids. This is a little bit more like that.
You know what? When I was a kid, I loved building models.
Yeah.
I built so many models, like plastic cars, all those Revell kits, planes, what I built, like a bunch of those like balsa wood planes where you cover them in tissue paper.
Oh, you did? Oh, wow.
Oh, tons of those, man. So
that was too daunting for me. I thought those were really cool, but like, oh my God, all that little fine work that you have to do, and gluing the tissue over the skeleton of the plane.
Yeah. I built a bunch of those. Yeah, I can't even remember how many I built. Tanks, like I built a bunch of like weird ones too. Like there was a series of models that were clocks. They were made out of plastic, but you build like a clock. And I built a bunch of those. And I built guns. Like I'm not even into guns, but like when I was a kid, like you could build like a replica, full size, just actual replica. Like it had the firing pin and all and bullets in like a cartridge that slid in, Like I built a few guns. Like I think I built a Luger.
Oh, that's cool.
Well,
was it plastic or metal?
They're all plastic.
Okay.
Right. But I think I built the Luger, and I built like a Colt 45, just like those classic World War II guns, like the Nazis are total fuckers. Like all Nazis should die. But as far as like when you're a kid, like the Nazis had all the coolest equipment. Like they had the cooler looking tanks.
They really did.
Yeah, I think I built a Tiger tank model. I built like Messerschmitts, and like I built like everything.
I mean, it is cool stuff. Did you ever see that documentary about Lemmy? And they show like there's a scene where he's wearing a German helmet and driving this tank.
No, I haven't. I gotta look that up.
It's pretty awesome. I mean, and you start to wonder, like, is Lemmy is he a Nazi? Or no, he's just fascinated by all that rock and roll stuff, and that bikers and heavy
like
metal.
That Iron Cross, is super cool looking, right?
Yeah.
There's what's really cool is there's this kind of like indie documentary on Black Sabbath, and I forget the guy that does it. You got to look it up. And he goes to England and he tracks down like Black Sabbath, right? And he interviews like one of the guys who was Black Sabbath's roadie back in the 1971, and they interview a bunch of people. They interview Cynthia Plastercaster for some reason. You know, they go to a party that like a doom metal party, you know, they just meet some people there. They meet some women that have like a coven of witches, but they sing like Black Sabbath a cappella, you know, and they go to the recording studio where Black Sabbath recorded their first album. And it's actually super great. But one of the things that stands out for me when you mentioned Lemmy is there's a scene in there where they're talking to one of the roadies, and they're like, oh yeah, Lemmy was a Black Sabbath roadie, you know, and you know where he gets his nickname from? Because he was always, lend me a fiver, lend me a tenner, you know? So that's where the name comes from, you know, which always cracked me up, you know.
It's awesome that he doesn't mind being called that.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
he adopted it.
Yeah, you got to own that shit, you know. Like I'm not gonna say what my nickname is. I'm not sure if I own it yet. Back when I was a bike messenger, I had a nickname, but I'm not gonna, you know, you have to do some digging to figure that out.
All right, I'll do that after the show.
Yeah. There was another scene in there that's really funny because it's like they meet with Cynthia Plastercaster, and her claim to fame is she'd like, you know, create plaster casts of famous rock star members. And so she has this bag, and it's got like Jimi Hendrix's member like cast in plaster, you know? And they pull it out, and they're joking, you know. You kind of have to see the scene. It's actually very funny. It's like it's like actually one of my favorite documentaries. Like, and it's just like a low budget. I forget the guy that did it. You know, he just kind of did it and published it to YouTube. But he flies to England. He meets all these people. They talk about stuff. They go to the pubs. You know, it was pretty good though.
Cool. I'll check it out. I think I've seen like a segment of it because I think it was cut up into segments. So I saw like maybe one of the interviews or something.
Oh, maybe. Yeah, I forget the guy's name that did it though. Shit, I'll look it up later. You know, it's been a while. I saw it like a couple years ago. Okay. You know, but it was pretty good. Lend me a fiver, lend me a tenner. That all stuck in my head. It was funny. You know. Yeah. So what else are you working on? So you got the guitar going?
Yeah, I got a guitar going. I was actually I added my cream colored Stratocaster to my workbench, you know, started taking that apart. I'm going to make some upgrades to that. You know, everyone's talking about Super Strats now. You know, Phil McKnight has a series where he's making a cheap Super Strat, kind of in honor of Eddie Van Halen. So I'm jumping on the bandwagon. No, I'm it's something that it's been on my to-do list for a while, so it's time to get that going on. Yeah.
Who's that guy from? There's a band like Blink 182. Mm-hmm. They're like kind of young people, like kind of not my scene, you know. But the guy in that band, he had a Strat that was kind of like that seafoam green with a single humbucker, and it was like the Invader. You know, it was like a Seymour Duncan Invader. It's like Invader's like a super hot pickup. I think it measures like 16K or something or higher. And then it has these giant hex bolts. They're kind of like domed on the top, but it has these giant hex bolts for pole pieces, you know. And then he did his as a hardtail, so it's just got the one pickup, volume control, and then the Invader, you know.
Yeah, I mean, a Strat, you don't really think of it as being a punk rock guitar, and I think Blink 182 is kind of considered punk rock for the 1990s. I don't really know any Blink 182 songs, but
they're kind of little like out of my
kind of considered punk.
Yeah, they're kind of like out of my age category, you know, right? You know, right? Yeah. Though I'll give them credit. I read some interview with them, you know, and they said something about like when they were just getting started, like they wanted to get gigs. So what they did is they said, oh yeah, we're like anti drug, you know, like we're like, don't do drugs band, or like, you know, right? And so they get these gigs to play like high schools and stuff just because they said that they were like, you know, that they would just say it, you know. I'm sure they were like, you know, they're like, yeah, we're anti-drugs, but let's drink a 6-pack or whatever, you know, right? You know, they're, you know, I don't think
Well, that's a good idea. You got to have some kind of an angle, you know, like
yeah.
I don't know, like if you're like the champion of like animal rights or something like that, like that's a gimmick that can get you gigs.
Yeah, maybe.
Somewhere.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, yeah. So you got the telly going. Actually, I'm kind of jealous. I actually
yeah, Blink 182.
telly. You know, I think that telly is super cool.
Oh, well, you know, you've got a telly in your parts
You're right.
drawer. You should
I should get my telly
get that
going.
going on. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it kind of needs a paint job, I think, but I don't know. Your thing is all about the oil finishes. You could just sand it down and I don't know. I think you've kind of filled in some routes that you didn't like on that one.
Well, when I was young and impulsive, I put a tremolo on it.
Right.
And then later I was like, I'm going to take the tremolo off. And so I just made a block of wood and I stuck it in there. So I'm going to put the hardtail bridge on it, you know, just so it's kind of more traditional now. So, you know, sooner or later I'll get back to that, you know. Lately I've been working on these guitar pedals.
Right. Yeah. Why don't you tell us about that?
Yeah. So I made the Vulcan last week. So I got this Vulcan done. It was sounding so good. And I had one more circuit board. So I thought like, I'm going to build up the circuit board here. So I got this, you can see all the resistor leads are poking out of it. So I just got to solder this one up. And then what I did is I got the mill out and I made a box for it. So I milled this box, right? I got like the level and gain control marked. I got, these are for the LED and the pots and the switch, right? So I'll just drill that. And then I milled the logo in here.
Looks great.
Yeah, I think it's looking okay. Yeah, it came out okay. I just did it just today, right before we talked, so I could have something to show. So that's making a little bit of progress. And then the other thing I did is I designed a few more circuit boards and sent them off to the fab, right over on Osh Park. So I did a few interesting projects. One is it's a project by these guys called Runoff Groove, and they have a website where they publish some DIY stomp box designs, and they're all original designs. So it's pretty cool. They actually have some really cool designs on their site. And one of the designs is called the UBE Screamer. And essentially it's like a Ibanez tube screamer, but instead of being built with op amps, it's built with these hex inverters from the 4049 hex inverter chip. And the hex inverters make really cool like distortion boxes, right? There's actually a lot of pedals built around the hex inverter. And the hex inverter is nice because when you overdrive the hex inverter stages, they kind of clip like tubes. So they get like kind of a soft distortion. They don't have like a hard distorted clipping. So it can sound like super distorted, but but not in a harsh way. So there's like a lot of pedals built around the 4049, like the hex inverter. And they built basically like an Ibanez tube screamer style distortion, but replacing the op amps with and the transistors with the hex inverters. The hex inverter chip, that 4049, it basically has like 6 inverters on it. So it's kind of like you have 6 little amplifiers to play with. And the tube screamer basically uses a dual op amp. It has 2 dual op amps. So that's 4 stages. And then it has 2 transistors, right, as a buffer at the input and the output, right? So the hex inverter actually can cover all that. So I made a layout for that in Eagle PCB, and then I submitted the layout to Osh Park. And so I'm waiting to get the boards in the mail, right? So we'll see it. If those come out good, maybe I'll just make the project public and anybody can order a board and build it, you know? We got to order.
Cool. I'm looking forward to hearing that.
Yeah. Actually, you know, I've read some reviews of it and people seem to like it. You know, I kind of like take the sound samples that I hear of pedals on the internet as kind of with a grain of salt. You know, you can listen to them and you can go, that sounds good. But there's a lot of factors like how they recorded it, the amp they're using, the, you know, compression of the audio as it goes through the internet, you know, right? You know what I mean? It's compressed in with an you know, an MP4 file or whatever, or, you know, MP3, right? So the audio, like, it's kind of really hard to do it. So that's why, like, I got to build it and then hear it on my amp with my guitar in the room, you know, before I'll really understand it. So anyway, so I got that off.
Well, you know,
yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, like, this might be one of those times when you might build 3 for yourself, or just, you know, as sort of like a R&D for yourself, to kind of like dial it in for the, you know, the, what are the right resistors for the guitar that you'll be using with it. You know, so you're making some of those choices, like what's going to be my Oob Screamer setup, because, you know, you do have those options as you're,
you could modify it. Yeah, I was actually thinking I'd give one to you. I got to get you to get building pedals, right?
I
so
know,
like,
I know.
I send you one, you can build one. I was kind of thinking if I built one, I could keep it, build the second one, try and sell it or trade it, and then you could just, I can give you the third circuit board, right? I'm not going to play 2 of the pedals, you know. So I did that, and then I did another. I did like 3 pedals on, you know, I designed like 3 layouts. I did that one. I actually didn't do all the work this week. I had actually had this work like mostly done. So I just finished up. I just kind of put the bow on everything that wasn't quite complete yet. And then finally got these projects out the door, you know. So I did another one too. It's called 22 Sevenths. And it's a project by Runoff Groove also. And it's basically the Big Muff Pi, but done with inverters instead of the transistors, right? And I read some reviews where people said they really like the sound of it, like, you know. So I built that, or I made the layout for that. So I'm going to get 3 boards for that also. And then I did a layout for this thing called the Ugly Face. And Ugly Face is like it's like a really harsh, kind of almost like a synthesizer distortion pedal. It's hard to describe the Ugly Face. I have one, right? Actually, I made this as an Ugly Face, but it's using a circuit board that I made a long time ago. So I made a new circuit board that I'm going to use, and I'm going to make a few of those too. So I actually really like the Ugly Face. I've made a bunch of Ugly Faces over the years. I sold like 8 of them to Nils Klein.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. I sold a couple through, like, I took like 2 down to Real Guitars, and then they were like, hey, Nels Klein came in and he bought an Ugly Face. And then a week later, they were like, hey, Nels is wondering if you can get 8 more. Can you make 8 more? And I'm like, okay, right. You know what he did though is Nels Klein did he did a show at the Museum of Making Music called Art of the Stomp Box, because I guess he has like an extensive stomp box collection, and they actually put my pedal as my Ugly Face as on the poster, except now they changed it, like they put a different one on there now, but originally when they first did the show, my pedal was the poster child for the show.
That's cool. Poster child.
Yeah, you know what he did too is Nels and this other guy, Henry Kaiser. They did a DVD on the art of the stomp box, and so they just they demo a bunch of stomp boxes and they talk about how they use their stomp boxes. And then in the video, Nels is like, "Hey, this is an Ugly Face," and he holds up one of my pedals, and then Henry Kaiser's like, "I have one too." Because I guess like Nels probably bought like 8 because he's like, oh, this thing sounds kind of kooky. I'm going to send one to all my friends, you know, like it's not like you're going to play 8 of them, you know? anyway, so I had
Right.
I had a layout I started for one of those, and then I finally wrapped that up and finished it, and then sent that off to the fab. So hopefully I'll get that back soon. I have an idea actually for some mods to the Ugly Face that I want to do that I think will make like an interesting pedal. It's something I've been thinking of for probably like 10 years and just haven't done it. So
Can you do these mods after the PCB has been made, or do you need to do these mods to the PCB?
oh, it'll require like a whole new board.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a whole new board. Like some mods you could just maybe use the old board, like you know, if you had mods like you were going to do this but then you were like, oh, I'm going to just change some of the capacitor values, you
Right.
know, you don't need a new board for that. But the changes that I'm going to make, that it's going to require some extra parts, like, so there'll have to be space for the new parts, you know. um, I'm not going to say what they are yet because I'm gonna do
Okay.
it, you know. It might not even work
Oh, of
too,
course.
so
Yeah.
you know, hopefully it'll work. I don't know. I think it'll work, and it'll be interesting. So you know, so anyway, so that's what I'm working on. And then I'm still trying to get that guy to trade me for the Dungeon Master,
Oh,
but I haven't heard back from him. I just sent him a message today. Maybe I'll check and see if he's gotten back to me yet. You know, Canadian guy.
yeah. Yeah. Speaking of Canadian guys and practice spaces, because he said he had to go down to his practice space and get the pedal.
Yeah, that's what he told me.
Yeah. A friend of mine who lives in Canada, he had a picture on Instagram of his amp. He said, "This guy is in my garage right now. I had to give up the practice space." So I don't know. I think there's a lot of that going on. I'm kind of like, um, well, it's kind of up in the air whether or not I keep my practice space. But people aren't using the practice spaces anymore, so it's probably a lot more home music going on.
Yeah, yeah, it's pretty rough. You know, Karen has the practice space in Oakland, but her band isn't practicing. And then she hadn't been going there for months. And lately she just goes by herself and then practices by herself. But there's also another band they share it with. So the other band goes in there and practices, but then it's kind of weird. Like, you know, you're not practicing together, but they're kind of in there. Is that like how long, like, between uses in a room is it safe with the COVID thing? I mean, I don't know enough about it, you know.
Yeah.
So that's kind of weird, you know. Plus, like, if you don't live with your band members, is it okay to form a pod where you guys practice it close? Because you know, if you're in usually practice spaces are pretty small because you have to pay rent on them and you don't want to pay a whole lot. Musicians don't have a lot of money, and then usually they don't have great ventilation because they need to be
Right.
noise enclosed. So it's usually
Mm-hmm.
hot and stuffy, which is like probably like terrible if, you know, for the virus, right? You know, it's like, or great for the virus, bad for the people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I'm not ready to go into a practice space down on Turk Street to, jam with musicians. The place that I do practice right now is a little bit more well ventilated in a bigger open space, so I'm not too worried about it. But yeah, it's a weird time for music.
Yeah.
Those of us who are still able to play are lucky.
Yeah. I like that plug and play, you know, SF Music City or whatever it's called, you know, over on Bush Street. Like we used to practice there and it was
Mm-hmm.
awesome. I think it was like actually a pretty good deal. You know, I think like prices, you know, like I have a lot of love for Lennon Studios. The people were really
Mm-hmm.
nice, but the cost was like, it was like super expensive to practice at Lennon Studios. And I thought some of the spaces were actually not that great because of the way the sound, like some of the rooms sounded very like they had a lot of echo in them,
Mm.
you know. But and then you also had to rent the equipment. So if you went there, you either had to bring your equipment or rent the equipment. So you paid for the studio time and you had to pay for the equipment. So it was actually really expensive. Where plug and play, you paid like, what was it, like 25 or $50 for 3 hours?
Yeah.
So between like 4 or 5 people, it could be like $20, 10 to $20 at the most each, right? You know, and then you got the drum set, 2 amps and a bass amp and a PA and microphone. So you didn't have to pay for any of that stuff. You just had to bring your instrument and a cable.
Yeah, it was a great deal.
Yeah, they had an amazing deal. I keep getting emails from them, and they're saying that they're because they're also like part of a hotel. So they have these, you know, these hotel rooms in the upper half of the building, right? And the studios are in the basement. And they were saying in the email, they were like, hey, we're opening up some of the hotel rooms for people to practice in. So you can practice in the hotel room, and it's like a bigger space. And then they're like, we're going to sterilize the microphones and clean the rooms after every practice. So they're trying to encourage people, because I guess they're probably also not getting tourists. Right. Like nobody's traveling, right? So they're like, what are we going to do with all these rooms in this hotel, right? You know, I still don't know about that, though. I don't know if I'd practice down there yet.
I sure hope they survive.
Yeah, it's really sad, because I thought they actually had a business that was worth, you know, it was kind of like old school San Francisco, you know, supporting artists and musicians, you know.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I thought they had a good kind of thing going on there, but yeah, it's too bad about the COVID, you know.
Yeah, I know. It's just been, you know, it hasn't been really good for anybody, the COVID. I mean, aside from like Amazon and a couple of other, you know, Target.
Yeah. Well, you know, like the wealthy apparently like added like, you know, $27 billion to the 1%. So the 1% got $27 billion richer, while the rest of us are unemployed and, you know, getting evicted, and our practice studios are getting shut down, you know, right? Mm-hmm. We're losing our practice spaces, you know, right? Yeah. You know what I heard is apparently they're going to do a tax on the rich in Canada to pay for the COVID crisis. So they're going to tax the rich. I'm like, we should do that, you know?
Well, we totally should. Yeah. 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 Somebody's got to, I mean, they're doing fine. There are so many people who can't even go to a job right now. And, you know, $1,200 like twice a year is not going to save their, I mean, that's not even enough to like buy groceries for a family that's been out of work for 6 months.
Oh my God. I know $1,200. That's not even rent for a month in this city.
Right.
I think things are going to change, though. It's like, you know, like I swear, I don't know if you've seen this, but I kind of walk around my neighborhood. I'm kind of out in the sunset, you know, so it's kind of a little different. It's like kind of the suburbs of San Francisco, but I've been walking around. I've been seeing a lot of people that look like they're moving. And so I kind of wonder if people are leaving the city, you know, because they're like, you know, one, it's too expensive and I'm unemployed, you know, depending on your situation. Like some people could go and live with their parents. Some people can work or go to school remotely. Mm-hmm. So they're like, I'm working remote, I might as well live somewhere cheaper, you know. And then some people are like, hey, my job just dried up, so I might as well move to a cheaper city, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but where you live, there's a lot of homeowners. I'd be surprised. I mean, I'd be surprised to see a lot of people moving out of there, but I just hear about it here. I know a lot of people are moving. A lot of companies are saying like, oh, if you move, we'll pay for it, and then we'll give you a pay cut once you get to your, you know, new cheaper location. You know, which I guess is fair. You know, so you get to keep your job, and if you move somewhere cheaper, you'll get a pay cut, but you get to keep your job. So,
yeah, there's a few places I read, like Microsoft apparently just said flat out, like, hey, we're going to make work remote standard, mm-hmm. You know, so they won't need, it's good for them, right? This is another way the 1% are going to add another billion to their, to their take, right? They're going to not support or maintain a giant building. Everybody's just going to work at home, right? And then they're responsible for paying the rent and cleaning and, you know, taxes and stuff, right?
Exactly. It's the Uberification of everything.
Maybe. I mean, I would say it's a little different, because with Uber, like Uber wants to make the argument that you're not an employee, you're self-employed. right? So that's a little different. Like I think Microsoft isn't saying you're self-employed. They're saying we're still employing you, but you're just going to work at home. And actually I can get behind that.
Right. But you have to buy your own Odwalla and you have to sweep your own floor.
Maybe. Yeah. You know, actually I'm okay with that. I mean, I kind of think it's stupid. Like all those companies that, you know, they buy you lunch and they do all these things. My company actually used to buy us lunch every Wednesday. We had a company meeting, but the deal was you had to sit your lunchtime through the company meeting, but then they bought you lunch. So I was like, okay, this is a trade-off, you know, right? I'm getting free lunch, but I got to sit through the meeting, you know, right? But, you know, I always thought it was kind of dumb. Like, you know, like I should, you know, people should be able to make their own lunch, buy their own lunch, whatever they're doing. The company doesn't have to buy you snacks and things like that. Though it is nice if they have that stuff in the office, you know, but it's not a requirement.
Right.
Of course, like I come from a background where, you know, like I don't expect all these favors and handouts. I'm just like, you got to take care of yourself, like where I come from, you know, like, you know, or at least that's the way I grew up. You know, it's just like, you know, I'd bring my own lunch to school and like I'd take care of my own shit, you know, like.
Yeah. No, a lot of young people, they, you know, it makes a big difference to them if they get, you know, if they get to do their dry cleaning on site and, you know, they can, you know, like have somebody come and like pick up their car and get it waxed and detailed and, you know, all this crazy stuff that people who work for Twitter or whatever get done for them because they work at basically like a internet services mall.
Yeah. Well, it's kind of a little out of whack, and it, you know, it kind of skews things, like where people start expecting all these little perks and favors where a majority of society is like, that doesn't make any sense. Right. And we're not going to get that ever, you know, or we're going to not even get what should be the normal level. We're going to get less, you know. But I heard Dropbox also, like after Microsoft did it, apparently Dropbox said, yeah, we're going to make work remote normal too. And I'm actually like, I think the work remote is okay. I think people should be doing that, you know. I think it's better, you know.
Right. I mean, it doesn't work for everybody, but
yeah, not everybody can do it, but I think it's okay, you know.
I think so too.
You know, I don't have any problems with it, you know. You know, I think like if it saves people a lot of, maybe it doesn't save a lot of people stress, because, you know, people with children, like you're at home with your child and you're trying to work and your kid's at home, you know, right? But that's a problem. But there's also a thing like maybe you're at home with your kid, you spend more time with them, so you get more family time. Everybody saves time with commute.
Right.
So you're not just stuck on the bus for 2 hours a day, you know, right? You know, like, I don't know, maybe eat more home cooked meals.
Yeah, absolutely. You know? Well, I mean, to just kind of bring it back to you know, to guitars, like, if
maybe
you can't
play
manage
more guitar.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say, like, if you can't manage your home life to the point where you have time to yourself to you know, build pedals and work, you know, play guitar and stuff like that, then needing a job that you have to go to get away from your family, I mean, that's just it's a different problem than, you know, than somebody who's, I'm not making sense, but, you know, like, if you need to be able to have that ability to separate yourself from your family and work on your work or your projects, you know, that's just something that you need to get done. So, like, if you have that problem where you can't get time to yourself, then it's going to make it difficult for you to do everything.
Yeah. I'm not saying it's going to work for everybody.
Right.
You know, I think it'll work for a lot of people though, you know, and
I think so.
It offers certain things. Some people, like if you work in like the public sector, like you're a barista or you work at a restaurant, something like that, like maybe that doesn't work as well, you know, because you can't work at home. You have to go out, right?
Right.
But a lot of other jobs, like if you work in insurance or you know, you work for the city or you work, you know, in an office, like any kind of that office work, like you could do that at home, you know. You know, it might be nicer, you know.
Yeah, and home could be anywhere in the world. It doesn't have to be in downtown San Francisco or the Mission or whatever.
Yeah, maybe you could make that even work even better, you know? So I don't know. Maybe you could get a little guitar playing
Yeah.
in, you know, on your break, you know?
Mm-hmm. Oh man, I wish I had guitar at work. There are so many days where I was like, oh, I just feel like playing some, playing some guitar right now.
Have you ever thought about bringing your guitar to work?
I have, but the reason that I don't, like the first reason that pops up every time I think about it is that I go to work at 5 o'clock in the morning. And, if I'm walking around with a guitar at 5 in the morning, somebody might want that guitar that, that has, superior weaponry or something like that.
This sounds very, very like video game logic.
Yeah, maybe I've played too many video games, but I read about stuff on Citizen all the time where like somebody's assaulted at Fifth and Market, and I'm like, oh, I just walked by Fifth and Market. So like anything I can do to lighten my load. Like I don't even want to carry a lunchbox or wear a backpack or anything like that.
Yeah. Well, too bad we haven't run into you. You know what? I have a travel guitar. It's an acoustic guitar, but it's like small.
Mm-hmm.
It's Karen's, but it's like one of the guitars I want to get out of the house, like get rid of.
Oh, well, that guitar right there it's pretty small. It's a pretty wieldy little guitar, and I like it a lot. It needs a little bit of setup work, and I'm gonna mount that piezo and put that EQ in it. Probably change the tuners, do a fret polish, and do some work on the bridge and the nut. And yeah, I don't know. It's the first acoustic I've had in years, so I'm excited about it.
Nice.
But I don't want anyone to steal it while I'm walking away.
I had actually brought my guitar to work, my acoustic guitar, though I never really played it. It just seemed like there was always too much work to do.
Mm-hmm.
Though a couple times I got it out, and there actually someone else had brought a couple guitars to work. So there was actually two other guitars. They were actually kind of crappy though. So I brought mine, though mine isn't that great, it's just okay.
Is it the one behind you?
No, it's kind of over here. It's like a Yamaha acoustic,
Okay.
So I got it for $75 with the case, which was like kind of a deal. So
that's a really good deal.
Yeah, it needs a little bit of work. It was actually $75 for the case and a pack of strings. So which like acoustic guitar strings are like $10 or more, $15, right? So,
Yeah, I think I paid $6 or so for the strings I got recently.
Oh, that's a deal.
Guitar Center.
Nice. Yeah. So anyway, let's see. What else are we doing? What are you listening to?
Well, I got some music from our friend Jamie, and one of the things that he gave me, he gave me that Hines thing also, but another thing that he gave me is called Blood Red Shoes, and it kind of like at first blush, it kind of reminds me of Goldfrapp. Some other kind of English bands, but it's pretty cool.
Okay, cool. Nice. Yeah.
What are you listening to?
Oh, I listened to the rest of that Hines album. So I was kind of digging it. I was kind of getting into it. They kind of remind me of like the Japanese girl bands like Shonen Knife or something. But then they also kind of sound like the 5, 6, 7, 8s, right? We kind of talked about this. I was kind of wondering about that. Like, is it like who in the band wrote the particular song? Maybe one of them kind of, has this like flair for the rockabilly roots rock kind of 5, 6, 7, 8s feel, right? But yeah, I listened to the rest of that album today. I took a walk and I listened to half of it, and then the other day, and then I listened to the other half today. It was pretty good. I was getting into it. And then, but some songs kind of have like a more like indie rock kind of feel, you know? And then some of them kind of have this kind of different, like more, I don't know what you'd call it, you know, it's a little more rootsy, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then I was listening to this other band called Lumerians. And Lumerians, like I saw something about them somewhere, and I forget where, but I saw something about them, and they were saying like they kind of sounded like weird. They're like extraterrestrial and like, you know, otherworld. You know, they had all these like adjectives that made them sound like they were from outer space and stuff. And I was like, okay,
Yeah.
right on. That's kind of right up my alley. I love that shit. So,
Well,
and
that's
then,
appropriate because the Lumerians are actually beings from outer space that live in Mount Shasta.
oh, nice. I didn't know that.
Yeah, a friend of mine had a residency, or she spent some time there for an art piece that she was doing about sacred geometry, and yeah, then I saw her. She did a talk at the I can't remember it's some French owned art gallery in the Mission, and she did a talk about it. And there was a girl in the front row who was like a true believer, and she had all these questions about the Lumerians. It was really funny.
Nice.
I think she was a little like my friend was a little scared off by this, the
Nice.
fanaticism.
Yeah. So anyway, I read something about the Lumerians. So I thought like, oh, I got to look them up, and they're on Bandcamp, and I love Bandcamp. So like, I'll listen to anybody. Your music's on Bandcamp. Send it to me. I'll listen to it. Right. So I've been listening to the Lumerians album on Bandcamp, and I was kind of getting into it, but they sounded actually a little more normal than I was expecting, like something more out there, but they actually kind of sounded more like, indie rock, or kind of like, what do they sound like? They sound a little more like Joy Division, something like that, different too, but a little bit, they kind of reminded me a little bit of Joy Division, which is actually kind of a compliment, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I like Joy Division.
Yeah. But I was expecting, like, Joy Division is very like from this world, like,
Yeah, absolutely.
right. So I was expecting something out there a little further, but it was okay, like they had a song that was like, fuck all y'all, which like as a title is very terrestrial.
Oh,
Right?
absolutely.
You know,
Yeah.
the album was called Out of the Void, which I was digging the title of the album, which I was like, oh, that's like, I want to listen to some music from out of the void, like some emanations from a black hole, it's like something I want to hear. But anyway, so I listened to that. It was all right. I like them too, because they on their original, one of the descriptions had them from, they were like from San Francisco, but then another description I read had them listed as being from Oakland. Right. So they probably were from San Francisco until the rents got too high, and then they had to move to Oakland, it's just like what happened to all the good bands, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, they must have moved at a good time, because Oakland is expensive too. And so now it's like, oh, San Francisco's too expensive, so we are moving to, Petaluma, or we're moving to like Sacramento or whatever.
Or Portland, right?
Yeah, Portland or Austin.
Yeah. So anyway, I kind of pictured they moved to Oakland in like 2006, they actually, what was a weird connection is they had like, one of the albums was dedicated to like some longtime collaborator or producer or somebody that worked with the band that apparently died in that ghost ship fire. Right. So like Ghost Ship was like a, warehouse space with a bunch of artists in it, right? It caught fire. Yeah. So it was kind of too bad, but it kind of was a connection, because I was like, oh yeah, I read about that in the news, so anyway, so that's what I was listening to this week. I got to look up something new for next week, but anyway, it was kind of entertaining,
Mm-hmm. Well, that whole idea, you have these expectations based on what they're called, what they're about, and how they describe themselves. That that I think that comes back to our subject matter for the day, which is, what are the choices that you make as a musician? From like, what kind of guitar do you play? Like, are you going to play a Strat in a punk band, with humbuckers or with one humbucker, or are you going to, you know, like somebody was talking about, it was a guy on the Texas Toast channel was talking about when he was young and he went to the guitar store, and the guy, the sales associate, asked him like if he was more of a Strat guy or more of a Les Paul guy. He's like, I don't really know. And he's like, well, do you like Stevie Ray Vaughan or do you like Guns N' Roses? And he's like, oh, Stevie Ray Vaughan. So he's like, oh, then you get a Strat. Like that's how you make your choice. That's the first choice that you make as a musician, is like, what kind of guitar do you play?
Yeah, but that's like, you know, I'm going to take issue with that. I mean, I know that's how it works, and it's probably affected me to a certain degree.
Mm-hmm.
But I also feel like, you know, you can do your own thing and make your own music with the thing that you like, the instrument like that you like, just on some visceral level, or, you know, right? Because I think like you don't have to emulate your heroes. People can make something new. Like, you know, what are heroes anyway, right? You know, they
Right.
give you something to aspire to, but maybe also
like if you I mean, a lot of those choices make sense. Like if you pick up a Strat, and you know, plug it into your whatever, you like your PV amp or whatever. Like let's say it's the early 90s or something like that. You've got a, you know, PV solid state amp. It's not going to sound like punk rock out of the box. You need to, you know, get the right pickups for it. You need to be well equipped to do that kind of music. Like what if Nirvana, what if Kurt Cobain had like a stock Jaguar and a stock Mustang, and he didn't you know, he didn't know how to get the sound that he needed to make the music that they did make. It would be a different kind of energy altogether. When I did my video demo of the Vulcan, I did one with my Jaguar shaped guitar with the hot rails type pickups, and then I did one with the Mustang because it's a way lower output, but it has a very true sound. Yeah, I don't know. Whenever I play that Mustang, I'm like, this could not be used for certain types of music. It just doesn't have the output for it.
Well, you know what I would say is like, you know, like that like you're coming from like the emulist, you know, or is that a word? You know, like you're saying like, hey, I can't play it for this kind of music because I'm trying to get that sound that those guys have. I'm trying to recreate this sound that exists over here. I think like from a different perspective, you could just take what you have and make a sound, and then you could play with the sound with the equipment and turning the knobs and twisting the screws and like just working with what you have, and then make a sound, like kind of form it into something that you like, you know, without having to go from the perspective of I'm trying to sound like Stevie Ray Vaughan.
Well, I hear you, but I think that there's also like, I want, like, you have a sound in your head that's probably based on, you know, things that you've heard, but it's also just like, I want to have this amount of punch when I play this single note thing, or, you know, when I play this chord, I want it to sound warm and round and heavy, as opposed to kind of like edgy and brittle, and I don't know, like there's it's a different sound.
Yeah. Oh, no, I agree. Like, you know, with some equipment, you're not going to be able to get certain sounds, or it's going to be different, you know? But I kind of think like if you're just making some music, maybe you got to like, you know, blaze your own trail, make up your own stuff sometimes, you know?
Right. No, I agree. I also
work with what you have, you know, just use what you have and go for it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. But, you know, like the like that note on the Oob Screamer docs, I thought that was really interesting. Like that they suggest different values of resistors for, that's a resistor, right? For different types of pickups. And the same thing with like pots on your guitar. Like you, I was watching somebody, they were talking about how they used a 250K tone pot and a 500K volume pot for their Super Strat. Oh, that was Phil McKnight. And so he had two humbuckers, and for some reason he uses a 250K tone pot.
For the humbuckers?
Yep.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I guess
that's his preferred thing.
I guess that's not too far off, because I think the original Gibsons, they had like a 300K. They had kind of an odd number.
Oh, did they? Okay.
I think the early ones did, and then later it was switched to like 500.
Right.
But I think the early ones had like 300K, or they had some weird number. I could be wrong, but I thought that's what I remember.
Well, the early Les Pauls had they had P90 pickups in them anyways. So.
Oh yeah, maybe that's part of the difference.
I guess that's something that the people can research.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just watching a little thing on Les Paul. It was actually on what's his name? Anyways, it's another YouTube channel, and this guy went to a Les Paul museum, and they had like all of these developments that Les Paul invented, including the humbucker. Like his log, he made his own pickups, and they were double coil. Like he had a dummy coil underneath the pickup that was on top. So it was a pretty innovative thing at that time.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Well, you know what, what was it? Those guys, the Gretsch had like a humbucker, and I forget what they called it. It had another name, but essentially it's a humbucker. But they had also invented it around the same time that Gibson. They didn't copy Gibson. And so there was actually a potential for like kind of a lawsuit between them, but that never happened, because otherwise they'd have to prove that they had come up with the humbucker first. And I think like actually it was possible that Gretsch had actually invented it first.
Interesting.
Right. So they always just let like I forget what they called that pickup. It was like what was it called? But Gretsch had apparently come up with a humbucker too, if I remember.
Okay. So that would be like Fred Gretsch or something would be the guy.
I don't know if it was the Gretsch person. It was like someone that worked at Gretsch, like one of their engineers, They were like,
okay. Oh, that'd be interesting to know, because in this video they were saying that Les Paul and Leo Fender and Paul Bigsby were all friends, and at some point I think Leo Fender had asked Les Paul if he wanted to start a guitar company with him, and then Les Paul decided that he had a better shot of getting Gibson to produce his guitar, his solid body guitar.
Oh yeah, wasn't there a thing where Gibbs or Fender tried to hire Les Paul? Wasn't that a deal? Like Leo went to Les and said like, hey, I need a big name to market my guitar, and then like Les Paul was like, now I'm gonna work with Gibson.
Yeah, well, I mean, they told the story a little differently on this channel. Oh, it was Rob Scallon is the channel that I saw that on, and somebody made a replica of the log, and then Rob Scallon plays it. It's pretty cool. I mean, it was probably a pretty rocking guitar, even though it was super heavy, made out of like a big dense 4x4. But Les Paul was really
Yeah, it was a big body guitar with a giant like center block, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, but he said that like when he first took that the log without the wings, without that, you know, that hollow body body attached to the outside, the audience just didn't respond to it. They're just like, yeah, it's not a guitar.
Didn't
It's
look
just
like
a weird thing. It's a
did,
broomstick.
didn't look like a Spanish guitar,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, you know, what's funny is I saw a like Les Paul, like a video of Les Paul playing, and apparently he'd invented some kind of delay thing too. And it was almost like a looper pedal, but done with like a tape delay, right? And so he had controls, and there was a bunch of wires coming out of his guitar, and there was controls like on the guitar, so he could be playing, and then he could hit a button to get the loop effect, and then turn it off, on and off, and overdub on it, right? I swear
crazy.
I saw a video of him doing that, and that was like another one of his inventions, you know. So that was
I think people have forgotten how amazingly influential he was. I mean, he basically he invented the multi-track recorder. He called it sound on sound. I mean, he's not just a guy whose name was on the Gibson Les Paul.
Yeah. Well, but it is.
Yes, his name is on the Les Paul, but I mean, like he was much more of a tinkerer. I mean, a lot like Eddie Van Halen. He was, you know.
Yeah, I'm not a historian, but you know, he's kind of an interesting character. I guess I would get more into Les Paul if I was into the music more. Like I hear the music, and he's a pretty amazing guitar player, but the music doesn't grab me where I'm like, I got to buy a Les Paul record and listen to it, you know?
Right.
You know, it's just kind of, it's not really not my time and not my style of music, you know? Though he's pretty amazing player. I remember seeing something like an interview with him, like before he died, when he was pretty old, like 80s or something, right? And he was still playing, but like he was starting to get arthritis, and he had some kind of machine that would like massage his hands. Like he put his hands in this machine, you know? And he was like, oh yeah, I have
while
to
he was
this.
playing?
No. Like he was like, I'd have to do this before every show, you know,
wow.
like,
Okay.
you know, it would like warm up his hands so he could play, because he plays pretty fast, you know. You know, but he had this thing, and I remember him putting his hands in the machine, you know, right?
That sounds
pretty
terrible.
weird.
I'm not looking forward to you know, getting arthritis or other degenerative conditions of aging.
Oh, I know, you're telling me, like I feel like this knuckle right here is getting kind of stiff, you know. But,
oh yeah, got to get away from that keyboard.
Yeah,
keyboard and mouse.
Yeah.
I think the mouse is pretty bad for you.
Yeah. I just have the trackpad on the computer. Mostly I'm on the laptop all day long, you know.
Okay, that's probably better.
Yeah. Hey, so have you seen anything on like Reverb or anything interesting there?
Well, I've seen it because I looked for it. I was just kind of fantasizing about my next project, and you know, I have a lot of guitars, and I don't need anything. But I'm like, one of these days, I want to build a new bass. So I was looking at building a like a 51 style P bass. And yeah, there's somebody in Germany who makes a pretty good replica of the 51 P bass body.
What's the difference? I pictured the P bass body like they're all the same.
Well, they had like a bigger pick guard, and they don't have that split pickup in the middle. They have like a kind of like a just looks like a single coil pickup.
Oh, actually, that one, now I remember, I've seen that. It looks different, and the body isn't rounded. It kind of looks almost like a Telecaster in the way that it's
just a slab
cut and routed.
But there are, you know, like there have been some kind of revisionist copies of it made, and I think I'd like the rounded, you know, the comfort carves. on it.
Nice.
How about you? You got anything on your shopping list at Reverb or eBay?
Nah, I'm trying to get rid of stuff rather than gain it. Though I did see this this Wandre.
A Wandre.
Like, well, it's like a Wandre was it was an Italian brand, right? I'll send you a link to this, right? So they were an Italian brand and they made some pretty weird looking cards. Or guitars. It's spelled Wandre.
Ah.
Okay. They made some pretty weird looking guitars, and a lot of them had like aluminum necks with like an aluminum headstock, right? But Eastwood made like a copy of one of the Wandres. And so this one that I sent you there is kind of one of their copies. It's kind of like an exaggerated Stratocaster with like a sunburst and three kind of, I don't know if those are mini humbuckers or single coil pickups. You can't tell. They kind of just like a flat cover. You can't see the pole pieces.
Yeah, they do look like it says
yeah, it does say mini humbuckers. Yeah. Yeah, and it's got a Bigsby, so you'd like the Bigsby.
Right.
But anyway, so I saw this and I was like, oh, that's pretty cool, you know? It doesn't have an aluminum neck. I guess like Eastwood couldn't make the aluminum neck, you know? It was like $600. I don't know if it's worth $600. It might be worth $600. This one's it looks kind of beat up though. It's got a big like chip in the paint on the back.
Yeah, it's got a big like a drop, like somebody dropped it. Like
yeah.
Chip.
I kind of feel like I was gonna say I kind of feel this one would be worth $600 if it wasn't so beaten up. So I think like on this one, like if I was gonna try and buy it, I'd make up an offer like I don't know, like $400 or something. Try and settle for $450.
Yeah, I don't know anything about those. Right. Yeah, I don't know anything about those Eastwood guitars. Like if they're worth what they ask for them, because I think $650 or $600 is kind of like you should be able to get a guitar that you can go and play shows with for that amount of money. It won't be like an investment quality guitar, but I think that you spent enough at that point that you should be able to play plenty of shows, for years and years. Because I mean, when I was a kid, I mean, like when I was in my 20s, I could get a lot of guitar for $650.
Oh my God, yeah. Yeah, I think overall, like the Eastwood guitars, like the quality is pretty good. I haven't seen too many. I actually own one Eastwood, but I think the quality is pretty good. I've only heard good things about them in reviews, and the one I have is pretty well made, though they go with like some of like when they recreate like those cheap guitars from the 60s, kind of like this, right? They actually kind of build them the same way they were built in the 60s. So they're not like, they're just built with more accuracy, maybe, right?
Right.
And the material are pretty good too. It's not like they're upgrading to some super fancy wood or anything. Like a lot of them are like, basswood or alder or something. It's not like super fancy, but they do. I think they do pretty good quality stuff, and then the pickups are like not like Seymour Duncan's or DiMarzio's. It's kind of like Eastwood brand, but I haven't heard anybody say anything bad about them. There's another one.
It's just weird that I haven't really seen any like reviews.
Yeah.
Like, Phil McKnight hasn't done like a Eastwood guitars review as far as I know. He's done Guitarfetish. He did he reviewed one of those kind of relict cheapo Telecasters with the that bridge that's recessed into the body. We've talked about those before. They're like pretty cheap, like $250.
The slick guitar. Yeah. Yeah, I bet those are great for the money. Like I see those go for like $200 to $300, you know, like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like really cheap. And you know, my experience with the Guitarfetish pickups and you know hardware is has been mostly pretty good.
Yeah, the guitar I'm looking for, though I haven't seen one. Though of course, like I don't want another guitar, right? But is this one? I just like that they make guitars that nobody else is making. So I think Eastwood
Right.
has like a really cool business model, right? You know, this is the one that I'm kind of digging right here. It's like this Devo cloud guitar. I just like it because I'm kind of a Devo fan, and then I like kind of weird looking guitars.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I feel like I'd get this guitar not because Devo played it, but I just get it because I like the shape, you know, and then I like Devo, so and they would do a weird shape, you know.
Yeah,
Do you like the cloud one? Did you look at the cloud one?
it is pretty cool. I you know um, uh, the other cloud guitar that people talk about is the Prince cloud guitar, and you know that's I don't think anyone makes a Prince cloud guitar, although you know you could get one custom made. The guys at Texas Toast Guitar, they were just like, I like that guitar, so I'm gonna make me one. And as far as I know, they haven't finished it. Um, it's not it hasn't been sold to any you know of their customers. It's just you know something that they make just to make it for fun. So that you could make the cloud guitar, the Devo cloud guitar, and then it would be, you know, it'd be worth having because you made it.
Yeah, yeah. Eastwood makes they actually do the Prince guitar, like that Telly. It's
Oh,
not
you're right.
like a, it's like a it's some other brand. It's not like a Fender, but you know, it kind of has that leopard spot like pick guard, you know, and it's kind of like honey colored. They make a copy of that.
Mm-hmm.
That see, that's the kind of thing I'm not really into. Like copying the artist's instrument, you know, like I just like the weird instrument, you know, like I just want like the strange looking one,
Right.
you know. Anyway, hey, so what should we wrap this up? What do you want to what are you going to work on this week? What's on your list?
Well, on my list, I got to finish the set neck Telecaster and ship it off to my brother. I need to finish up my Super Strat, Super Duper Strat, and then you know I I'm kind of thinking it's time for the Melody Maker. I've got this Melody
Oh
Maker.
yeah.
I'm gonna put some GPS stick pickups in it. I need to get a pick guard for it. And I found a guy who makes pick guards for Melody Makers of like every different year on the internet. And so I just need to call him and see if he can sell me one without me having to use his crappy website to buy it.
Okay. Yeah, too bad too bad the COVID thing is going on because we could make a pick guard, you know, if I knew the dimensions and the shape, like if you drew it all in Illustrator or something, like I could route it at the house, you know.
That's the thing. Yeah, we'd need to get the dimensions. We'd need to get um, a template for it.
Yeah.
But
You,
this
you're,
guy, he's got every different year. Like he's got a whole, you know,
yeah.
website shows every different year.
Yeah,
So
you
he's
know
got them.
the thing here is like, you know, it might cost like, you know, $20 to $50 for the pick guard, right? Like you get a custom pick guard, right? But and it sounds kind of expensive, but the thing is the hours that you spend making the pick guard actually kind of makes it worth it sometimes to just buy the thing, you know. So you know, to make the pick guard like this, essentially you'd have to find some drawings on the internet that are close, import them into some digital software, make the modifications that you need to make, print it out on paper, cut it out, check it to make sure it fits your guitar, because there might be some changes. You know what I mean? Right.
Yep.
You're going to actually do the pickups differently too. So you'll have to measure them against your pickups and make sure that they're centered correctly and positioned in the right spots. And then you have to actually order the pick guard material, saw out the shape, run it through the router, change the router bits, because it's going to take 2 different bits to do most of the work. You're gonna have to get the drill press out and drill some chunks out of there, you know what I mean? And then you could screw it up and then have to do it all over. Right.
Yeah. Like I did do with that Hondo pick guard. So
I know that was kind of sad. Sorry, Kirk.
No, that's a learning experience. And actually, I was watching somebody else's channel, and at some point he was talking about that same issue of putting the template on the right side of the wood, and then he goes, "Ask me how I know." Many times.
Yeah.
So it's like,
yeah,
everyone's gone through it.
Yeah, I did mine in it. Like I did it the bevel right, but what I didn't do that I screwed up was I beveled the part of the pick guard where the neck joint goes and where the bridge fits, which shouldn't have been beveled, right? So I screwed mine up too, so and then I was like, at that point I was like, you know what,
you're just in the zone,
right? But I mean, after I was all done, I realized like, oh shit, I could have done this better. But then I was like, screw it, I'm going to just go with it. Because it was actually a lot of work. I guess if you get your tool shop down and you get your process down, it's like easier for you to do it. But at some point, like it's kind of faster to pay. That's another reason why actually I kind of am enjoying using Osh Park to make the circuit boards, because it takes a while to make a circuit board. Right. Yeah. I mean, even if you think about this, there's like a ton of little holes there. If you had to drill all those holes by hand, I used to do these with an acid resist. So you'd take a blank board, you'd cut it out, you'd iron on this acid resist stuff, drop it in the acid, then you'd have to drill all the holes. And it was actually kind of a lot of work. Now I've been using this desktop mill, and it'll make a good circuit board, but it also has its own problems. Like you have to spend a lot of time in the software building the the board file, and then you have to run it through the machine and hope you don't make any errors. So actually I don't mind doing this. It was like $12 or $15 for 3 boards. It takes a while, but they do all the work. So sometimes it pays to just hire someone to do the work.
Right. Yeah, I think it totally depends on the project and what are the kinds of things that you want to do yourself. Like for the Melody Maker, I don't mind having somebody just send me a pick guard and I just screw it on there. If it were something like, I don't know, like something that I really enjoy doing, then I'll just do it myself. I'm trying to think of a good example. What do I like doing? I occasionally enjoy painting. Right now, I'm not doing any of that because I don't really have the facilities to do it. And the weather has been really not good for spraying nitrocellulose lacquer.
That's one like I don't enjoy, just the fumes and the mess, because you got to clean up. You got to I would avoid that at all costs for me personally, because I don't enjoy it, And it's a lot about what you enjoy. Like I don't mind sitting on the computer making like the layout for the circuit boards and laying out the schematic, like that I get into. I don't mind soldering up the boards like that. I don't mind, drilling like 50 holes on a circuit board is not very exciting. So
right. But drilling like 6 holes on a pedal box is, that's not a big deal.
Yeah, I make a compromise there, Yeah, I got to do a few holes here, right? So that'll be this week, right? Maybe I can do it during work. If I'm working at home, I can just 10-minute break, run down to the basement, get the drill press started.
That's right. That's one of the silver linings of the work from home.
Yeah. So anyway, so hey, let's wrap it up. Did you got anything else to say?
Sorry about that. My lights just had a glitch. No, it's let's see if I can fix that again. All right. Okay, we're back. No, I'd like to hear about people's work at people's projects. If you're working on something and you're watching this video, I know we do have some subscribers who who are interested in this stuff. So yeah, post what you're working on in the comments below.
Okay.
Thanks for watching.
I'd like to hear from people how you slack off from work if you're working at home.
Yeah.
How do you slack off? How do you make work bearable? How do you get the company to pay for your hobbies? Nothing illegal, but like, what do you do on your 10-minute break? How do you make that count for something?
Yeah. You're legally allowed the 10-minute break. So
yeah, totally. It's not like, I know like the 1% is looking at this as like, oh my God, you're robbing the company. But I think like the reality here is I'm probably giving them more than they're giving me. And so if they give a little bit back, that's good for them and good for me,
Right. Yeah. It's balance.
Yeah. Well, I have a laptop that I do all my work on. Like work gave me a laptop, so I do everything, all the work stuff on that laptop. But you know what? I have this other laptop we're using right here. And this one, I usually leave it downstairs, but what I've been doing lately is I take it upstairs. So if I this is what I did this week is when I had a 10-minute break, I'd sit down and work on my circuit boards and do the layout on this computer. And so that was like a good way to like kind of increase my productivity. So I'm on my work computer. And then if I switch to this computer, I could do a little bit of work, shut it, and then go back to work,
That's great. I'm envious of that since I go to a job. Like if I could take my 10-minute break and, like make a little more progress on my guitar build, that would be great.
Oh yeah, that you can't. Yeah, it's going to be hard to get the guitar build. Well, you got to think of some way to get your guitar at work where you could play it.
I know.
You couldn't work on it, but if you could play guitar at work on your break,
Yeah.
It might increase morale.
I could shop for parts.
Yeah, it might increase morale. Like people at work would enjoy, right?
That sounds like you've been playing video games.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, you gotta think of some angle. Yeah, it's hard to do. Maybe get your notebook and just like write down the things, like plan your evening at work.
That's true. I could work on my my bullet journal for like that evening or the next day or whatever.
Yeah, that's what I do. Is usually sometimes I'll do that too. Is I'll plan like what I'm going to work on later, and so when work is done, I immediately just like head right to my project, and like try and get it happening, or get something done. You might not be able to do it all, but like if you can just get a little something done.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well,
I have to say having a to-do list is really useful. So, I got my fridge defrosted last week and I started making progress on guitar building. So, the
to-do list is great as long as I'm using it. Like when I'm not using it, it's not doing me any good. But if I do it daily, I've been trying to make it a thing where I do the to-do list in the morning, and then I check it again in the evening, So if I go look at it, it actually doesn't take that long. And I waste more time like on Reddit or like stupid internet stuff.
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you think about the things that you have to do in your life, without writing it down and itemizing things, it seems daunting. Like, oh, I have all this stuff to do and I'm not doing any of it right now. I'm just sitting here procrastinating and watching YouTube videos or surfing the internet.
Yeah.
If I wrote it down and itemized all the things that I have to do, that's really not that big of a deal. I've only, like whatever, 6 hours of free time, but there's only 6 things that I have to do today, that kind of thing.
Yeah, actually it feels really productive too if you just check things off. So highly recommended.
Yeah,
we're gonna try and evolve this to-do list thing into something that is gonna do even more for us. Okay,
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, let's call it a wrap there. Okay.
All right.
Okay, so thanks for watching.
We'll see you next week.
Yeah.